Good evening, everyone. It is the Camera Artist Guild Thursday Image Critique, and I am your host, George DeLoache. I'm a portrait artist and photographer's coach coming to you from Los Angeles, California. And I say that every week, but there's somebody that might not know who I am. Hey, you guys, I'm coming at you an hour early tonight. The church I belong to, we're in the creative industry, or at least we have an awful lot of creative people. They're part of the studios and recording, and so we're having a special prayer meeting for creatives, for photographers, for videographers, and actors, and anybody who makes their living in creativity. And so I really want to go, so I'm going to come on an hour early. And if you happen to be on and you're getting the broadcast live, great. If not, watch it on the replay. And, so next week we'll be back to the regular time. But this week I kind of beg your indulgence as I play an hour early. I'm going to show you a couple of things today as we get into the broadcast that I thought would be helpful. We have been reviewing different aspects, both of things for the art of photography and for the business. Remember, I break things down into threes, and in photography, I break photography down, at least professional photography, down into threes, into the art side, into the business side, and the finance side. And we have looked a little bit at the art side as we talked about lighting ratios last week and how to control the shadows. And we've talked about the different business aspects, with the fundamental one being a mind change. And that is understanding what we're doing. If we intend to make a living out of photography and a good living out of photography, then we have to approach photography as a business rather than an art form. It is an art form, and you can do your art, and you can create all the images that you love to make, but you may not be able to make a good living out of creating those. But you can take the skills and the ability that you put in your own artwork, and you can move that over into a lucrative area of photography and make a good living. And then you can take some of your spare time, like you would with any other type of a hobby, and create the images that you want to create. And furthermore, you get to buy a whole bunch of nice tools and you get to play with all of those tools, and they're paid for by your work, along with putting a lot of, let's say a lot, but putting a satisfactory amount of money in your pocket and allowing you to live the life that you want to. But it all comes about with a mindset. And you have to see yourself as a lucrative businessman. You have to train yourself. If you're not learning, you're losing. Every day you have to read, you have to watch YouTube, you have to discuss stuff, join groups. I belong to PPA for years, and I belong to the affiliate since the early 80s. And it's made a measurable difference in my life through the camaraderie of associating with the people and in the image competition, which has held me accountable to grow and get better at my work. So there's an awful lot to be gained there. There's a lot to be gained with if you're in a smaller town, your local chamber of commerce, where you get together with other business people and see what the business is like in your community, and trade information back and forth, and make yourself be wanted, known. Those are things that you can do, just minor things that you can do, but you have to. They used to. Bill Sorensen called it the relentless pursuit of business. You have to constantly be going after your business, and it will pay you back. It's slow. It's like getting a train moving. You start out really slow and you keep hammering away, and slowly it builds up speed until all of a sudden you're gone. I want to see Camera Artist Guild be the best photographers in the world. I believe that we can be that. I believe that we can be a clearinghouse for nothing but photographic excellence. It's up to every one of you to work to your fullest, to take your talents and your ability and your determination and make something out of this, make something really, really special out of this. Now, what I'd like to show you today before we get into the critiques is just one day in the life of a working pro out here in Los Angeles. I had 2 assignments yesterday that I think are going to be unique, so I thought I would show them to you and explain about them. I was contacted by 2 clients, one from Spain, Madrid, and the other one from Germany, Stuttgart, and no, Berlin, I'm sorry. And they both wanted photographs done, and they both were photographing for their principals. One was photographing for a corporation in Spain, and another one photographing for a journalism association in Germany. And they sent me comps. They sent me photographs that they said, we want the image to look like this. Now, you like to think that limits your creativity, where you say, well, but I can't do what I want to do, what I feel doing as an artist, how I look at them and decide I want to create for them. You're structured into what you have to do. But within those confines, you use all of your skill that you can in order to match and deliver a finished product, because that's what they're paying for. And they're paying good. Now, the only tricky thing to this was, or one of the tricky things to this was, that both of them had colliding schedules, and LA traffic limits their travel. And so they had to come in, one at 10 and one at noon. And I had to be able to deliver one lighting setup for the 10 o'clock shoot and one lighting setup for the noon. And the 10 o'clock went to about 11. So I had an hour between the 11 and the 12 in order to completely redesign the studio and come up with a lighting technique that would match their comp. And I'm going to kind of take you through the thought processes. So I'm going to roll around and jump on the machine here for a second, and let's see if we can't give you an idea, some ideas, some things that you can use yourself. Okay, let's just check and see if there's any comments. Oh, there's a couple of people on there. My goodness gracious. Okay, I thought I was going to be completely off. Okay, here are the 2 comps. Comp on the right, the Spanish lady, the one from Madrid, they required her to be an image similar to this lady on the right-hand side in red. And then the Germans sent me this photograph and said they wanted something to match that, because these 2 guys are team members and they're going to promote them in their journalistic endeavors. And they wanted the images to look like they were shot at about the same time and about the same studio and an environment and everything. So those were the challenges. And to switch from high key white to low key is a bit of a challenge. But let me see if I can't take you through the process. Now, let's look here. Okay, there we go. We have, let's take the high key first. This was the first one. This was Lucia, and it was a high key. And I handled it a little bit different. Now, they threw me a curve. She did, when she came there. She ended up wearing a white jacket. And you have a white jacket on a white background, and sometimes that's very difficult. And you've got to be able to get patterns in it. And even though she had a nice tan, her skin tone was brighter, so you could not go even darker in any way without turning some of the white into gray. So you had to get it just right on. You didn't have any room for maneuvering. So I set the entire system up for neutral gray, for zone 5, which is dead in the center of my dynamic range. And I metered for zone 5. Now, I chose 5.6 because it gives me, with the lens I'm using, gives me the best possible results. It gives me a satisfactory depth of field. I used a 105 f2.8, f2, 105 f2 lens, and it's Nikon's DC 105, which is a really a sweet lens. I used it. It was they wanted this torso. It also gives me a possibility of cropping it into a headshot if she wants a headshot. But anyway, I chose 5.6, and now I have to balance out the lights for 5.6. I have to balance out the background so that the background is reading white, and I showed you how to do that. If you don't remember, or if that episode is lost there somewhere, I'll bring a teaching on high key and how to go about setting that background, because it's a little tricky to get the background. Now, these are both straight out of camera. I have not touched them in any way except for just simply cropped them, because my files are huge and it just makes a hard time loading. But if you compare the two, here's the lady in red, and there. Now, my background is a little whiter, but if need be, I can do a cutout, drop her off the white background, copy the color of the white that's here simply by drawing it into, well, I've got it in Photoshop, bringing my brush tool up over here, hitting it to Alt, that will set the color of the brush, then install that layer behind her, and she becomes the color of the other image if that's what they want. But that was the first shot. Now, then what really became tricky was making it to the next one. Let me see if I can go. This one is what I did with this one. Now, I got to admit that I really kind of got into an ego trip when I got into this one here a little bit, and I stretched it just a little, because I looked at the way the person who handled this German shot here on the left, I looked at the way they handle the light, and I didn't like it at all. Boy, they need to tune into Camera Artists Guild. They had used a kicker on the left side, and they had totally destroyed any modeling that would be done with the left side shadow. And they had harsh shadows, and these cheeks just popped out because of the direction of the light and how they were applying. The kicker was not the fill. They didn't have a fill in order to bring those shadow values up. So what I did was, and I'll pull up a diagram in a moment, I used my Paul Buff 36-inch softbox. It's actually the Octa with a grid. I popped it up and adjusted it until I got the exact amount of light hitting the subject that I wanted, with the background illuminated enough to bring the color pretty close to what this is. If I rotated it, if I didn't have the grid, the background would be washed out and there'd be a fade here in the center of the background. With using the grid, if you turn it too much away from the background goes black. And if you turn it too much, then you see the brown pattern. So it's just getting that grid to drop just enough light on that background to make the background look right. And then I brought in I have three rear lights. I have a kicker on the left, kicker on the right, and a hair light, but they're toned down very, very lightly. I mentioned that before. Just barely hints, just enough to give a little bit of highlight in the hair and bring that hair up. And then I have a reflector on the side. Now let me see if I can't show it to you on this diagram. Here's the subject. Now this is this modifier is not representative of the Paul Buff. The Paul Buff is kind of a deep dish Octa with a grid, but I couldn't find that in any of the mock-up stuff, so I just put this up there. And it's turned at an angle, angling it away, so when the model is here in front of the light, she's getting the benefit of most of the light, and I am with the grid shaping the amount of light that's dropping onto the screen. Now, this is a seamless, but you understand what I'm talking about. Then I used a V-flat, and I continue to position that V-flat. Now, the closer you come to the V-flat, the more shadow filled in, and the farther away, the less shadow. So I moved it to the point where I was satisfied with the amount of shadow, and that's simply ricocheting the light from the modifier off of the V flat back into the subject, and determining the exposure by the distance you require the light to travel. If you move it back here, then the light has to travel a longer distance. Consequently, it's going to be less, the inverse square law. If you move it in closer, then it's going to be greater. So that is the way you handle the shadow. So the way I worked it was I put up my backdrop. I used a muslin backdrop that I had that was very, very similar pattern. Dropped that in. Then I got my camera position where I figured, or my camera position, position to the camera, where I wanted them set, so that I got framing the way I wanted, and I got the girl far enough off of the backdrop that my depth of field took care of any wrinkles that might be in my muslin because it's been folded up. So maybe I got about 10 foot now, maybe closer to 15 feet from the muslin to the subject. But then I set the subject position up here, planted my chair, and then with the remote, I now move in and set the key light. And I set the key light first, as I mentioned, building the background, making sure that the background is illuminated the way I want it, and looking at the way the light affects the model. Now, I can turn the model a little bit, or I could move the light back and forth this way in order to adjust the pattern on the face. If you bring it up this way, you've got beauty light. If you bring it back this way, you've got short loop, and you got short Rembrandt, or you have broad loop, or broad Rembrandt, depending on where you place that light. But I settled for right about there. I wanted it to be short, but short loop, but with a very with not very dense a shadow. So I placed it where I did, and then I've got a hair light on a boom sitting above the subject, just dropping a kiss of light inside, just enough to go in there. Now the kickers are a little bit smaller than this, but they both have grids on them, so it keeps the light from flaring into the camera, but it's just enough light to touch the subject without looking like a kicker. Now I go about balancing my lights. I take the incandescent light, incandescent, the light meter, and I point the light meter at the light source from the position that I want a diffused value, or a middle gray value, or a zone 5 value, which is usually the forehead area. I don't want that forehead area to blow out. So I place that usually right along the forehead line when I'm doing a face, and point it back at the light and take a reading. And at first the reading was F16 because I had used my Einsteins. I used Einstein. I had used it for something else. And now I went about adjusting the light, lowering the light output, until I got 5.6. And once I got 5.6, now that means that we are good on the background. We are good on the subject. We have the lighting pattern we want. My boom light for the hair light and my two kickers are set to give that shallow amount of light, that light touch at 5.6 on the key, because I shoot at 5.6 all the time. So I didn't have to adjust these; they were already set up and ready to go. And then I moved this V flat in and out until I got the shadow density that I was after. And then all I had to do was bring the model in, and I was able to get that done and out of the way in a limited amount of time. So if you had any questions, you can pop those questions in. But since we're so early, I would imagine that there are nobody asking questions. Okay, let's pop over to, whoops. I didn't want to do that. That's the address of the German corporation. There we go. Well, George, I'll tell you, you are really doing it today, pal. Let's try getting Photoshop this time. Okay, we got Photoshop this time. We can close these out. Let's close out this one, close out this one, and let's bring in Camera Artist Guild. I thought I had it up. I didn't. So 9/29/22, and we have the images for Camera Artist Guild, and let's pull them over here on the Photoshop and we'll get the critique going.